The Premier League title race is far from over despite Manchester City dropping 2 points against Nottingham Forest in their 2-all draw at the Etihad Stadium. Yes, welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome to the community for all our new subscribers. I hope you enjoy your stay here with us. Now, yesterday, Manchester City played it out to a 2-all draw against Nottingham Forest, twice going up front through Anton Semenyo and Lodri, but twice Nottingham Forest came from a goal down to restore parity through a cheeky goal by Morgan Gibbs-White, a goal with his back heel similar to that of Thierry Henry that he scored against Charlton Athletic in 2004 October, with the late Jose Antonio Reyes providing that assist there. But then again, Lodri with the header showing another importance of set-piece plays this season. And then Elliot Anderson with a brilliant performance on the night came good when he curled that ball beyond the reach of Gianluigi Donnarumma to make sure that Nottingham Forest walked away with the point. But not just that, but Moriro also had a timely intervention with the last kick of the game as Savinho attempted to fire Manchester City onto 3 points with that literally goal line clearance with the final kick of the game. So very beautiful performance from Man City, one that they will be proud of despite not getting all 3 points. Now, in the aftermath of that, on the other side, their title rivals in Arsenal were winning by 1-0 against Brighton and Hove Albion at the Amex Stadium thanks to that 9th-minute strike from Bukayo Saka. Well, in the aftermath of that, I've seen Manchester City fans, some Arsenal fans, and perhaps the neutrals saying the Premier League title race is over. Well, Pep Guardiola is adamant it's not over, and I do agree with him because it's still all but done. Everything there is to play for is still there. If you're Manchester City, I'm sure if you know Pep Guardiola or have known him for quite some time, he knows a thing or two about the Premier League title race, having taken at least 3 of them to the wire against Liverpool twice and against Arsenal. That was in the 2023-2024 season, with Liverpool in the 2018-2019 season and subsequently the 2021-2022 Premier League seasons. So when it comes to a title race being finished, he knows it can go down to the wire, and Manchester City still have an opportunity to make it that. Following yesterday's results, they still have 9 games to play. Really, Arsenal have 8 games to play. That means with the 7-point lead that Arsenal have opened up at the summit of the Premier League table, Man City have a game in hand, that postponed game that they have to play against Crystal Palace that was slated for the March 22nd weekend when the two sides, that's Arsenal and Man City, will be playing it out at the finals of the EFL Cup at Wembley, is the game in hand that they have. Assuming they were to win that game, it simply puts them within 4 points behind Arsenal, a team that they have to play on, I think, April the 18th at the Etihad Stadium. So, assuming, again, Man City were to win that game, that would put them within just a point behind Arsenal, provided all factors are kept constant on the other side, that Arsenal will have won all the other games, and equally Manchester City will have won the other games besides winning the game against Crystal Palace and Arsenal. So when you go into a title race, and like I said, assuming in a perfect world that you're just within a point behind the table leaders, that is a kind of title race that goes down to the wire. So mathematically, Pep Guardiola knows it more than anybody else, or just as much as anybody else, that it is still within their reach to win this Premier League title. And, however, that chance falls at 30%. Why? Because 70% is on the Arsenal side. And I say that is because realist Manchester City seek perfection. They will have to pray that Arsenal also falter yet again, like they did against Wolverhampton Wanderers when they dropped those massive 2 points, having been 2-0 up, but then forced into a 2-all draw at Molineux by Wolverhampton Wanderers, who have since then gone ahead to beat up against Aston Villa by 2-0 and subsequently Liverpool by 2-1 in their fight against relegation. So, if you're Manchester City and you're hoping to take care of your business to absolute perfection, you must pray at some point down the path that Arsenal do falter. Are Arsenal capable of faltering? Yes, most definitely yes. Yes, they've only lost 3 games this season, losing to Liverpool, Aston Villa, and Manchester United, but they have had so many draws against teams like Wolverhampton Wanderers, against Manchester City themselves, against Chelsea, against Liverpool, against Nottingham Forest, So they've had a good number of draws in there. That means it is still possible that Arsenal drop points in their remaining 8 games. In any case, in Arsenal's remaining 8 games, it's not going to be a walk in the park. 5 of those will come at home, 3 of them will come away from home, and among them is the game against Manchester City. But also, very importantly, among the 8 games they still have to play, 3 of them are London derbies. We know the fate of derbies. It can go either way, even though Arsenal have dominated the London derbies in the recent past. They have difficult games against Everton, against Newcastle, which can end either way. In any case, yesterday we saw a 10-man Newcastle beat up against Manchester United by 2-1, thanks to that winning goal by William Osula. So, here is a look at what their responsibilities will be, particularly in the Premier League, but also in the mix-up or in addition to other responsibilities in other competitions. As we all know, all teams or both teams in Arsenal and Man City are still fighting on 4 fronts, perhaps to win the quadruple. Both still in the UEFA Champions League, both still in the FA Cup, have to play a final in the EFL Cup, and are in the running for the Premier League title. So, let's start with the table leaders, Arsenal. In their next 5 games, in the Premier League particularly, they have to play Everton, they have to play FC Bournemouth, they'll have to play Manchester City, they'll have to play Newcastle, and Fulham. In addition to those 5 games, will be their other 3 final games of the season, away to West Ham, at home against Burnley, and away to Crystal Palace on the final day of the season. Now, in between all that, of course, they have responsibilities in the FA Cup, which they play again this weekend, away to Mansfield Town, and engagements in the UEFA Champions League, for which they were booked against Bayer Leverkusen at the round of 16, having to play that home and away between March 10th and 11th, and then the subsequent week of March 17th and 18th. So, can Arsenal sustain the pressure of playing across 4 different competitions, but also in the run into the Premier League title? Their performance yesterday against Brighton and Hove Albion was far from convincing. In any case, it was as poor as they come. But that will matter less. What will matter is that they got 3 points. The question, however, becomes is how many more games can they go through in that manner? Are they going to give those kinds of performances until the end of the season, or they will be hoping for better performances coming up next? We can only have to wait and see. Only time will tell. Now, on the other side, Manchester City equally have responsibilities in the Premier League. And here are their next 5 fixtures, and by extension, the other fixtures that they have to play until the end of the season. Like I said, they have 9 fixtures compared to Arsenal's 8, with that 1 game advantage. Next up for Manchester City, of course, this weekend, they have a game against Newcastle at the 5th round, or at the round of 16 of the FA Cup. Another difficult fixture. After which they will have to play Real Madrid home and away in the UEFA Champions League at the round of 16. But particularly in the Premier League, their next game will come against West Ham United. They'll play away to Chelsea. They'll play at home against Arsenal. They'll play Burnley. They'll play Everton. Those are the next 5. But in addition to those 5, you have the other final fixtures still for Man City that they have to go through. And among those is Brentford, Bournemouth, and Aston Villa. So Aston Villa will be their final game of the season. Brentford, Bournemouth, and Aston Villa. So mathematically, I believe Man City are still well within the reach of the Premier League title. All they need to do is stay perfect. And they stay perfect, it's a possibility. They are capable of that. In any case, history shows they've done it before. Unfortunately for them this season, they've been far from perfect. Oftentimes, they've dropped the ball. And that's how they are 7 points behind Arsenal. In a very imperfect season, or a very competitive season, as Virgil van Dijk states it, following their defeat against Wolverhampton Wanderers, you could argue that it's not a given that Man City will remain perfect, whereas Arsenal will be faltering. The same way, we cannot assume that Arsenal will be perfect, whereas Man City will be faltering. But like I said, it's Arsenal's Premier League title to lose. Because even if Man City were to be perfect, in the remaining 9 games, Arsenal would still come out with a point ahead of them. Assuming in the remaining 8 games, Arsenal go ahead and win 7 of those, which is what they need to do. It wouldn't matter if they lost to Man City, but won all the other games. What simply that would mean that is they would finish a point ahead of Manchester City and would still be Premier League champions. So dear Arsenal fans, dear neutrals or Manchester City fans, this Premier League title race is far from over. There's still plenty to be played for. Those squads are about to be stretched. Those nerves are about to be tested. That pressure is still piling on. I'm sure most Arsenal fans watched that game against Brighton agonizingly under enormous pressure, literally with their hearts in their hands. Same applied for Man City as they sought for that winning goal on the other side against Nottingham Forest, which did not come. Just as much as the equalizer, perhaps they would have hoped for to come against Arsenal, did not come. So it's going to be a nail-biting end to the end of the season. And luck will have much to do it. While there were penalty appeals in Manchester City's draw against Nottingham Forest, Pep Guardiola did say that they cannot rely on match officials for their sustenance of a Premier League title race, that they need to get the job done by themselves before they look to rely on match officials. It's pretty much the same story for the Arsenal side, who seem to cut out of individual errors out of their own performances. In any case, out of the 22 goals they've conceded this season, 10 of those have come as a result of individual errors. That's about 45.5% for the Gunners. Can they cut out of those mistakes? Can they sustain the pressure? They have no experience of showing that they have sustained the pressure before, because on the last 3 times of asking where they've come second on the Premier League log, they've not seen it over the line. They crumbled under pressure. When you go back to the 2022-2023 Premier League season, I think Arsenal won about 3 of their final 9 games, and that's how they conceded the Premier League title to Man City. So Man City know that one too well, that they have come up against Arsenal before in the running for the Premier League title and have come out the better of them. However, the responsibilities for both teams across different competitions does pose a challenge. Imagine Manchester City were able to knock out Real Madrid of the UEFA Champions League. Chances are they could come up against Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals of the competition. Quarterfinals that will be played in the month of April. So in other words, there's still a lot at stake. There's still more hurdles to jump, more mountains to climb. If Arsenal were to get past Bayer Leverkusen on the other side, they could either meet of Bordeaux Glimont or Sporting Lisbon. Wherever their own fortunes land them, we can only wait and see. But those fixtures, having to play week in, week out, and midweek fixtures in the UEFA Champions League or in the rearranged fixtures of the Premier League, could put a stretch on already tired squads. We've seen signs of fatigue across different players on the Arsenal side and perhaps, by extension, the Manchester City side. Will Pep Guardiola get the better of his own student, Mikel Arteta, in the running for the Premier League title? Our prediction here on the Football Tribe UG channel was that Arsenal will win the Premier League title. So far, so good. But can they see it over the line? Only time will tell. Your thoughts about the running for the Premier League title. Do you think it's done and dusted, or do you think it's far from over? Our view is that it is far from over. Thank you. Do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel in case you're new here. Share with your friends so that our content can be further recommended to other bigger and wider audiences. Thank you. Until next time. Bye-bye. Stay blessed.